Hey guys, Casual Cutter here, and today's video I have these two excellent knives to show you and to compare to one another, because you might be looking at them and thinking, well, that kind of looks like the same knife, but it's not. This is the Fox Knives Suru, and this is the original Vox F9. I am pretty stoked about this because the F9 is for all intents and purposes, a grail knife of mine. It's a knife that I never thought I would own, at least not anytime soon. It is a handmade custom by Vox, Jesper Voxnes, who, he's my favorite designer and maker. And he only does about 20 to 25 of these. And then he calls it a day. But the Fox Suru is this same design that he licensed Fox Knives Italy to produce and manufacture as a production knife. The one I have in my hand is a sprint run, but nonetheless, it's a production knife, Vox design. You can see right there. Boom. And, I picked up the Suru because I figured, hey, it's the closest I'm ever going to get to an F9. And then, a few weeks later, this thing comes my way and I had to jump on it. So naturally, over on Instagram and Facebook, I got quite a few people asking for a comparison video, the differences between the original and the production version. And that's what today's video is going to be all about. So if you're interested in either one of these knives, stick around and find out what makes this one different from this one and this one different from that one, and what makes both of them awesome everyday carry compact knife options that you might want to consider. All right, so a brief introduction to the Suru, and I have a video back on my channel about this knife when it first came in, but the Suru was first introduced at Blade Show 2018, and it actually took home Knife of the Year for a good reason. It is a beautiful design, but it's also extremely ergonomic and just a great everyday cutting tool that's compact enough to have on you, not know it's even there, and it's just it's a great smaller knife. The Suru comes in a couple of different configurations of material. They're all the same design, but the base, I guess you can call it the base, Suru has N690 blade steel, whereas the higher end version has M390 blade steel, right there. The base version has aluminum scales. The higher end versions have either titanium in this sprint run here, or carbon fiber, full carbon lock type of a deal, which is pretty innovative and pretty cool concept. But Vox, what he does is he takes his custom designs and licenses certain production knife manufacturers to make production versions of the knife. They have different names, obviously, this one being the Suru, this being the F9, but it's a basic production version for the most part of the custom original. And the Fox Suru is a great design. I can't say anything bad about it. If you're into smaller knives, this might be something you've considered or already own, but it's a great knife. So this one here, like I said, it's a sprint run. It has titanium scales, M390 blade steel. It's a frame lock. It has a ball bearing pivot system, and it's a cool knife. But the original which Vox makes about 20 to 25 or so of each one. I think 25 is his cutoff. This is the 9th iteration in his folder line of customs. He has the Vox F1, F2, F3, so on and so forth. I think he's working on the F11 now. But, you know, what he'll do is he'll sign off, sell the design to a single production knife company, and, you know, when he's done making the final customs, he'll call it a day and move on to the next one. But being that I have both of these, and I've owned the Suru for about a month now, you know, I've definitely picked up on there are some key interesting differences between both knives. So it's not like he's just selling the exact design over to the manufacturer to make the same exact knife. They're pretty different. You know, I would say overall looks, you know, they're probably 95% the same, but structurally, the way that the insides of these knives are made and the materials that are used, they're very different. So let's just start at the top with blade steel. The original Vox Custom uses RWL 34, and the Suru Sprint Run that I have here is in M390. Now, you know, the base Suru comes in N690, which is, you know, middle of the road, good everyday steel. This Sprint Run has top of the line Bowler M390, which is probably the hottest steel out right now for everyday carry at a reasonable price. But RWL 34 is a popular European steel. The Grimsmo Norseman also uses this blade steel, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it at all. Good edge retention, good corrosion resistance. It's decently tough. It's easy to sharpen, so it's good to go. But these two knives have two different blade steels. So there's that. Handle materials, they're both titanium. Backspacer on the Suru Sprint Run is titanium. I believe it's aluminum on the more basic model. The backspacer on this particular Vox Custom is copper. It's done in a beautiful copper, which you can kind of see in my terrible natural lighting. But, yeah, so there's that. The pivot systems on both, they run steel ball bearing caged bearings. The Suru has a ceramic detent ball, but again, steel bearings. The Vox has steel detent ball, steel bearings. Size and shape, okay, yeah, let's get into that. So the blade shapes are pretty much identical. The key difference is this particular Vox Custom has a almost full flat grind with a little tiny swedge up top. I personally love that design. The Fox has the same blade shape. I mean, if you put them side by side, shape-wise, they are pretty much identical. But the Fox has a bunch of extra grinds going on. They have a flat right here. The swedge is much longer and more pronounced. So you have that key difference there in the grind. Now, to confuse you even more, the F9 Custom has a Tonto blade variant. I think he only made a couple of. But comparing these two, yeah, they're about the same with the exception of those grinds. As far as stock thickness goes, I don't have my calipers out, but the Suru is noticeably chunkier in terms of blade stock thickness. I mean, it's not a huge difference, but you can tell, especially, it might be hard to see on video, but you can tell holding it in the hand that the Suru is a thicker blade. And that also transfers over to the frame. The Suru frame is a little bit thicker overall than the F9. So in terms of dimensions, that's the two big things you're going to find. Blade thickness, frame thickness. Overall, the knife is a little thicker. It's also a little bit heavier. In terms of the action and internal construction. So the Suru has a stop pin up at the top and a cutout in the blade so that when that comes up to lock up, the stop pin rides right in there, keeps the blade from going back any further, and the frame lock locks up. The F9 has a much different system. Flip that open and you'll see there's no stop pin that's visible. And the reason for that is that in the F9, the stop pin or stop pins, I don't know because I haven't taken it apart, there they are right there. See that going straight through? So the blade has a cutout, you know, like a, what's the word? Like a hemispherical cutout in the blade, almost like the way a detent ball path goes. And that cutout rides all the way up until the point in the blade where it stops contacts that pin and it locks up. Locks up on the frame, locks up on the blade, preventing it from swinging past the maximum apex. Is that even a thing? I don't know. But anyway, it's what stops the blade, and it's on the inside. When the knives are closed, you can actually see the differences there too. You can see where the cutout is in the Suru's blade, totally different shape. And then with the Vox, it's just, you have that lock face there, and that's it. You know, it's a much cleaner flow right there. There's not a bunch of shapes going on and a pin. So that's a difference in and of itself. Flipper tab, I mean, listen, you got to expect there to be fit and finish differences. And you know, production knives these days are completely raising the bar on really good fit and finish, especially if you kind of go over the $200 mark for most companies. So like the chamfering and the finishes on the hardware and the satin on the blade and everything is you know, as close to perfect as you can kind of get. But at the end of the day, this is a $250 knife, and it's a $1,000 plus knife. This knife is made by hand by one guy, finished by hand, inspected, all that, and this is made in a factory by multiple people. So, you know, you're going to notice a few things. Every edge of this thing is chamfered. Okay, pretty much every edge on this is chamfered as well. I think I mentioned in my Suru overview video, the inside of the thumb hole is sharp, which it is. Some people like that, some people don't. The inside of the thumb hole on the F9 is smooth. So that's a difference there too. And overall, the shape and size of the thumb holes is also different. So you have that. See, there it is. Moving on to the lock side, you might notice the Suru has a steel lock bar insert, which you can kind of see. There it is right there. And the F9 Custom does not. It's just a solid titanium lock bar with the detent ball in there. Suru has 2 screws on the lock bar. This lower screw holds in the plate for the lock bar insert, and the upper screw also holds in. Does it? Yeah, I think it does. It's not for the detent ball, is it? No, that holds in the, no. Yeah, so both these screws hold in the lock bar insert, and then the detent ball is right there. Which, I think the detent ball is built into the lock bar insert. Anyway, I don't know. But that's the difference on the frame lock. Pocket clips are obviously different, but there's a couple different pocket clips for the Suru. Cutouts for the lock bar tension are very similar but different. Back spacers are very similar but different. You have a slightly shorter back spacer on the Suru, and the one on the Custom is a little bit longer. My particular Custom has the copper back spacer, so there's that. But you know, I'm sure there's other options that he uses for his back spacers, titanium, so on and so forth. Yeah, we went over the thickness of the frames. We went over the differences in the blades and lockup features. Let's get into action. I mean, you know, it's an important part, right? So the action on the Suru is good. I mean, it flips well. It's on bearings, so you can't really complain about that. Thumb flicks well. You know, if I was carrying this knife, if I bought this knife and, you know, carried it and used it, I wouldn't have any complaints, really. You know, I would think it feels pretty nice. But getting this in hand, it's a totally different ballgame. I want to say that it's night and day. I mean, you know, I noticed that because I have both knives right here, and because I was used to this knife for a few weeks, and then I got this in, and you know, immediately picked up on the difference. So, the Custom is being that it's hand built, hand QCI, you know, same guy, tuned to perfection pretty much. It has that in the action. Listen to the detent. Okay? And then you have the Suru. Now, the average person might not notice the difference, but you know, it's noticeable. It definitely is. And the same thing goes for the deployment. I mean, the F9 does have a considerable amount of perceived force, I guess you could say, when it flicks open. So action-wise, yeah, it is noticeable. The F9 seems to have a better action, which when comparing it to this knife, which already has a really good action, you know, take it for what it's worth. But again, $250 knife, $1,000 plus knife. So, you know, I would expect the action to be better. Believe it or not, that's not necessarily the case. There are custom knives out there where production versions or production knives in general are actually better. You know, better quality, better fit and finish. But as far as this guy goes, I am completely happy with the way that it works. It's something you got to kind of appreciate in person. But anyway, trying to see if I missed anything else as far as differences between these. You can see that, you know, the screws are closer together here because the backspacer is shorter, but that's not a big deal. Yeah. I mean, it's clearly, the Suru is clearly a production version of this knife here. Overall size and shape, it's a little bit bigger. It's a little bit chunkier. And it has some differences in terms of the final fit and finish, those grinds on the blade, and then, of course, the design of the action itself with that stop pin, that lock bar insert, and everything else we went over. But yeah, I mean, both knives are pretty awesome. The F9 is pretty much a dream come true for me personally. And, you know, now that I have this knife here, I'm probably going to consider getting rid of the Suru. You know, I got this knife in on, I want to say Wednesday or Thursday. It's now Sunday, and I've been carrying it every day since. So I am not afraid to carry and use this knife. That's what it was made for. I mean, it's not a priceless artifact just yet, so I'm gonna use it and enjoy it myself. But that leaves the Suru to kind of just collect dust. You know, this thing is pretty much like new condition, so I might as well consider getting rid of it, passing it on to somebody else that might enjoy it. It was a limited edition sprint run. I think they only did 70 of these in the plain titanium with the blue hardware and the M390 and all that. So I got to think about it, guys. I got to think about passing this one on to somebody else who will enjoy it, because I happen to be lucky enough to have the OG custom right here. So those are pretty much all the key differences between the production Suru and the original F9 Custom. If you're still here, thanks for sticking around to hear me babble about the differences between these two knives. And follow me on Instagram and Facebook at The Casual Cutter, because if I do decide to get rid of this Suru, that's where it's going to go down. And as always, I'll be posting plenty of pictures and videos on this guy. So if you like this video, you know what to do. If you have any questions about this video, down in the comments, let me know. Be happy to chat with you about either of these knives. And as always, thanks for watching. Casual Cutter out. Catch you guys on the next one.